What's up, gang? Kawaii50 here with another Fate Grand Order video, and I've got to ask you, what is Rome? What embodies Rome? Rome is the feeling where you just crack open a brand new game and get that smell straight out of the box. Rome is the feeling when you eat shredded cheese straight out of the bag at 3 a.m. and know nobody else is watching. And Rome, it makes you feel good. And what is more Rome than Romulus Quirinus himself, the truest embodiment of Rome, who has arrived to turn all things into Rome. Yes, it is time to go over this Saint Seiya-looking man and check out all of the best allies, craft essences, and command codes to make this man a truly grand Lancer. Hopefully, this video ends up helping you out and really makes your time with Fate Grand Order the true embodiment of Rome. And if it does, be sure to go ahead, like, and subscribe. Romulus comes equipped with 1 quick, 2 arts, and 2 buster cards, with an AoE buster-style Noble Phantasm. And we'll get to that Noble Phantasm in a minute, because it's got some wacky stuff going on, as one would expect from the embodiment of Rome. His max HP of 13,632 is solid, as is his max attack of 12,273. Ain't that nice? His NP per hit is also solid at a 0.59% with those 2 arts cards, and his star absorption is as expected of a Lancer in a nice little middling range. Our Grand Lancer's first skill is Throne of Quirinus rank EX. This gives all allies a 10 to 20% attack boost and critical damage boost. But if your allies are Roman, they get yet another 20 to 30% crit damage stacked on top of that. This also makes all of your enemies Roman for 5 turns. Now, why would you want to make your enemies Roman? Well, we'll get to that in the Noble Phantasm. Don't you worry, we're making our way there. What I can tell you right now, though, is that you're going to want to go ahead and max this skill last. Not because this skill is weak by any means, but they're just bigger priorities in Romulus's kit. Romulus's second skill is Divinity Transformation rank B. This gives him 2 instances of invincibility that last for 3 turns. It grants him a 20 to 30% NP gauge steroid and also grants a flat 10 critical stars. That does not change as you sink levels into this skill. However, you are going to want to go ahead and level up this skill first for multiple reasons. To start with, the invincibility lasts for 2 hits over the course of 3 turns. So if your enemy doesn't target Romulus, well, you've got another long instance of invincibility, so reducing this skill's cooldown is going to help a lot with survivability. The invincibility itself, however, though, is just gravy. The main reason you want to max this so fast is that 20 to 30% NP gauge charge. You're going to want Romulus charging up his Noble Phantasm as quickly as possible, and that remains true even if you're fighting a single opponent. And Romulus's final skill is Shooting the 100 Heads Roma style rank A. This gives him 3 turns of 20 to 30% buster card effectiveness, and also increases his critical star gather rate for 1 turn. It also applies a bonus effect. Whenever Romulus crits somebody, he adds a stack of the Roman trait onto that singular enemy. This is where you're going to start to see how this all comes together in Romulus's Noble Phantasm. Definitely go ahead and max this skill second, again, for that reduced cooldown and that stronger buster effectiveness boost. For append skills, we're really going to focus on going with mana loading. That extra NP charge is going to be very helpful, especially considering Romulus can only charge 20 to 30% of his Noble Phantasm gauge. Everyone basically just needs a 50% these days. It's pretty much standard. So let's try to get to that at the start if we can. And now we get to the most Roman Noble Phantasm in the game, Per Aspera ad Astra rank EX. This hits all enemies for 300 to 500% damage. However, there is a catch here. The enemies you have, they are now Roman, and that means they are under Romulus's purview. So they take an extra 20% damage per Roman stack. You can go ahead and end up maxing at 10 of these stacks, so that's going to mean an extra 200 100% damage to that enemy. I say that enemy because odds are you're only gonna get this onto one enemy. Getting it spread amongst all three is basically impossible, so it ends up making Romulus this sort of weird AoE Noble Phantasm, also Boss Slayer style of servant. This again is also going to make all of your enemies Roman for a longer period of time, as well as give all of your allies a little bit of that Roman trait as well, so they can benefit from that critical damage boost on one of Romulus's skills. This also has an overcharge effect, increasing all allies' attacks by 10 to 30% for 3 turns, but they don't need to be Roman for this. Romulus shares this equally with everyone. As far as sinking some sort of levels into this Noble Phantasm, as it is with most characters, NP2 is the sweet spot. That is where you are going to see the biggest percentage boost. So which allies are worthy of supporting the mighty Rome? Well, Rome does like red cards. Rome likes red cards a lot. Red cards go burr for our man Romulus. So we are of course going to want to go with Merlin as our primary supporter, since even though Romulus is an AoE servant, with that single target damage boost he's able to give himself over very long fights, stacking that Roman trait again and again and again, you're probably going to want Romulus in your longer challenge quest and boss fights. There are of course other servants that can go ahead and help him with this, so let's go ahead and look at some of those now. First, let's start with Leonidas. Not only is Leonidas able to provide Romulus with a Buster Card effectiveness boost, but he's also able to bring the attention of all enemies onto himself. I'm sure you noticed when we talked about the skills, Romulus's invincibility is tied to his Noble Phantasm charge, so you may not be saving it to activate at the most opportune time. With Leonidas, you can go ahead and pull all of that enemy attention onto him. He can tank, which is what he's good at, and allow Romulus to continue to stack up the damage. With Leonidas also being a Lancer, odds are whatever enemy you're fighting with Romulus is going to be weak against Leonidas too, so it's a nice 2-for-1 deal that will allow Leonidas to survive a little longer. My second recommendation is Shakespeare, and not just for his enchant skill that gives that Buster Card effectiveness boost. His King's Men skill also adds an extra 20% NP gauge charge to an ally. Combine that with a maxed out second skill on Romulus Quirinus, and that is a total of 50%. Pretty nice. Shakespeare still remains a very good budget supporter. If you need to pull in someone to up Romulus's damage exponentially, look no further than Chiron. The swap in strat that you end up using for Chiron is still very, very effective in the game. Swap the man in with an instant critical star generation craft essence and use him to just buff the heck out of your Roman divinity. Doing that, you are able to get a very strong bit of burst damage out of Romulus Quirinus. And if you've got enough stacks of that Roman trait and enough chances to crit, you're going to see that damage ramp up fairly quickly. I also definitely have to recommend Queen Himiko as a supporter for Romulus. She has the ability to grant 8 critical stars each turn per ally for 3 turns. Since Romulus needs to crit to activate that benefit of his third skill, you're going to want as many crit stars as possible to reduce your margin for error. Her Noble Phantasm is also no slouch either, increasing all allies' Buster Card effectiveness and critical strength, also increasing their NP overcharge level by 2. When this is applied to Romulus, this ends up translating into more attack for your entire party. And finally, if you want to use Romulus for farming, I definitely have to mention Koyanskaya of Darkness. Don't get me wrong, Romulus is not necessarily ideal for farming. Like we already discussed, he's this weird AoE Noble Phantasm single target damage dealy servant. But the fact remains that he has an AoE Noble Phantasm, so you can still use him for farming for some degree. Using a double Koyanskaya setup, you are probably going to be able to clear 3 waves with Romulus Quirinus with surprising effectiveness. I don't really think you're going to have a lot of issue doing that unless you're fighting some of the hardest levels in FGO. Now, which craft essences truly embody the spirit of Rome? Well, honestly, I find it weird to do this, but we definitely got to give Romulus the Black Grail. The Black Grail is immensely helpful. When you are stacking that Roman trait, you are going to see a lot of Noble Phantasm damage on one enemy in particular, despite the fact that that Noble Phantasm is AoE. We want the Black Grail so we can go ahead and multiply that damage further, making sure Romulus Romulus' Noble Phantasm makes them extra dead. Of course, if the Black Grail is out of your reach, Heaven's Feel is, as always, an acceptable substitute. If you're looking to use Romulus' Noble Phantasm right out the gate, or just get in a quick wave of farming, Kaleidoscope is, of course, a solid choice as well. And I do have other recommendations beyond that. If you happen to have Partake with the King, this can be a great choice for Romulus Quirinus as well. Buster card effectiveness plus 10% and a starting 50 to 60% NP gauge. Chalk that up with Romulus' second skill and a well-timed Merlin buff, and you can go ahead and instant Noble Phantasm with this as well. And finally, I also want to recommend Demon King of the Sixth Heaven. This grants Buster card effectiveness as well as NP strength, granting a happy medium between the Black Grail and Partake with the King. Should be a nice boost. And finally, our command codes. Again, we've got to pump up that Noble Phantasm damage, since that's where we're going to get a lot of those bonuses. So let's of course start with Da Vinci. This grants plus 15% NP damage up, and you're going to want to use the card this is on before the damage is dealt. But the trade-off is honestly going to be worth it. If Romulus wasn't also so focused on crits and getting some extra damage out of that, and using those crits to apply that Roman trait, I'd recommend applying this to a Buster card. But since we can squeeze some extra damage out of those, go ahead and throw it on a quicker arts card. It doesn't really matter. You'll still find this fairly effective. I can also recommend White Vessel's Command Seal or the Code Cure variant from the Friend Point Gacha. Romulus doesn't really have any way to cleanse his own debuffs, so any bit of debuff removal is going to be very helpful. And as for those Buster cards, let's sink as much critical star absorption on those as we can. We want stars to flow to at least some of Romulus's cards so he can apply that Roman trait. And since the skill that applies that is also tied to Buster card effectiveness, chucking these on our Buster cards is going to be the best bet to get maximum damage. Armament of Victory is of course going to be your main go-to, but if you're looking to take stuff from the Friend Point Gacha and go a little more budget, Code Focus is honestly good as well. Basically anything that increases critical star absorption is going to be great for Romulus. Overall, gang, Romulus Quirinus is a fun servant that can provide a nice variety of flexibility in the form of a Lancer, since you can either use him as a quick little farmer for a single wave, or you can go ahead and bring him along and deal a surprising amount of damage to a single enemy on challenge quests. The problem is going to come in the face of Veteran Masters. Veteran Masters are going to be confronted with the fact that, you know, I probably have a Karna, I probably have a Lancer Artoria Altar, a regular Lancer Artoria. There's a lot of AoE Lancer servants out there. And is Romulus Quirinus going to check any of those boxes or do anything better than those other options? No, honestly he isn't. He'll do just as well, but he's not going to be a game-changing new AoE Lancer member of your roster. However, Romulus Quirinus is still a very serviceable servant that new masters especially are going to be very, very happy to have on your team. This man is still Rome. He will enhance your gameplay experience. Make no doubt about that. But of course, I want to know what you all think, so let me know your thoughts about Romulus Quirinus, the Grand Lancer, down in the comments section below. Let me know if you think there are any allies, craft essences, or command codes I might have missed. And let me know how you personally feel about Romulus Quirinus after encountering him at a certain point in Fate Grand Order's story. I'm still going to be a little bit intentionally vague because stuff hasn't been out for long, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you want to talk more Fate Grand Order, be it about Romulus Quirinus or really any other character, my Discord server is of course always open and always friendly. I want to give a big thanks to the patrons on Patreon, subscribers and followers on Twitch, and of course all of you here on YouTube. Your support is what makes me continue to make these videos. Anyways gang, this is Kawaii50, hoping you all have a phenomenal day. I'll see you all in the next one.